just as our first official meeting of the trio of saving the world with good social media stuff that we will name something to do with Nova, perhaps. Okay. What do you think, Nova? Is there where would you like to start? Is there any?
Or like maybe a different question. What have you already done on that project in relation to that project? So what is the status currently with your idea of thing?
Yeah, I've done a lot of thinking. I created a fully working prototype in 2012, but then I discovered quickly that I knew nothing about marketing and had no budget to actually attract people to use it. So it went nowhere because it required a critical mass of people to even make it work, basically. So there's one thing, that's one kind of piece of software I already made. And I'd like to remake it and reinvent it and kind of improve it with a group of people who want to do that. But I think it's just one piece of the puzzle. Basically, I called it a think tank. I just like the name.
Okay.
I'm just not necessarily structured like actual think tanks out there, but that's what I called it. And that was a pretty simple idea that I just took all the way. It's kind of like, a website you can sign up. You get a little profile, you can put your picture up, a little bio or whatever if you want. And then there are a number of topics. You can start a topic and, there's some sort of rules based on that. So after there's a lot of people in there, not everyone can always start a topic. There's a bit of a mechanism to slow that down. And basically you can talk in there. It was all text based. And if you liked what someone said, you can support them with clicking a support button. You have a certain amount of supports you can use. And if enough people support your idea, it gets supported more.
So that's again, that's sorry, just sorry to jump in, but that's kind of the one major difference I find between just liking and supporting is if you're limited, right? If you only have so many social credits you can grant people, then you have to really think a lot more about what you like, right? And who you grant those.
I just like the idea of calling it like support instead of like, puts it into a very different framework.
Yeah, that's actually a very good word. Yeah, I wish I would have brought that up in the podcast. That makes more sense to me now that you mentioned
it. So basically the support would be the currency.
Yeah, support's the currency.
In that system.
It's a piece of it. So and the other big piece, I guess, to put it apart from likes is, you can like someone's message and maybe 37 other people liked it, 4 people gave it a heart emoji and whatever else, right? Yeah. But that doesn't actually do anything. All it does is kind of like social proof it for other people that see that message. Whereas this system, once you support it and some other people support it, if a critical mass of people, based on a percentage of how many are in the conversation, end up supporting the same thought, that becomes escalated. Because what I've done, or what I designed this thing for, is to create a text-based chat room where 1 million people can talk at the same time, which currently is impossible because you get 30 people in a chat room and the messages just start going crazy. You get 1 million people in there. It's inconceivable because of the way that they're constructed. So my approach was different. Basically, it involves each person having a meter, how many messages they want to be able to see at a time, whether it's 30 messages a second or 1 message a second or whatever, at their own pace. And based on that, with all the messages coming in, they see some amount of messages from the people that are kind of around them, in a metaphorical sense, I suppose, based on a bunch of metrics. So everyone sees only a small portion of what's actually happening in the conversation at any one given time. The more people, the less they see percentage-wise, let's say. And then if you like what you see, someone says, "Oh, that's kind of what I was thinking," or "I really liked an answer to that question," or whatever it might be. You can hit the support button, and if enough other people who saw that message as well also hit that support button, as a percentage of the people who saw it, then it becomes escalated. It gets repeated to more people that are sort of above them in a way, based on metrics again, and it gets repeated to them, and they see that thought. And again, if enough people support that, it'll keep moving up. For instance, we have 10,000 people in a conversation. Through the metrics of the conversation itself, which I haven't explained yet, they're staggered in a pyramid type form so that thoughts move up the pyramid is the point. And when they get to the top, it's a little bit different up there. And people move up and down as well based on how much they're supported. And there's also a report button. And if enough people report a message, then that person's going to lose metrics and perhaps get kicked out of the conversation.
And therefore visibility. But I really like that. I think
love
that
it.
the whole
Yeah.
this whole design is genius. I
love
think this actually might work and solve a bunch of problems that currently exist.
And yeah, that's kind of exactly what we had in mind with the TruthWorks platform to begin with, like some kind of system.
Just like if I may say
sure.
one thought before I forget it, so that it's on the record. I think the genius part would be if it's implemented in a way that it's sort of gradually moving someone up or down by the constructiveness over time of what they're doing. That's a great solution to having the sort of either or censorship system. Yeah. Because like normally today, like if somebody's reporting, you ban them and they can't do anything. And that's not necessarily like very humane or constructive way how to do things, because then if it's either or, and it was one of those cases where the sort of the reporting was actually malicious or whatever, then or it sort of wasn't justified, and that person is like permanently fucked because of what that happened. That's just not a good design. Like if you make it like gradually, and it's also tied into like how much of the social credit the person has who's doing the reporting or whatever, and sort of all weight by this, and it's always just like moving the things relatively based on some sort of algorithm, then that's just, I think that's great. That might actually be a massive improvement.
And what I also love is if you basically, the weight of your support and ban is basically based on your own personal social credit stores to some extent. So it's basically let's just call them philosopher kings. I like the word philosopher king in general. Is people who have been involved, understand. They're like the judges of the system essentially. And if one of them supports something or sees a comment that's cool, then it gets, say 10 or 20 times as much support as just some random schmo that's just starting to use the system, right? So it basically just gives them that much more power to kind of shape the conversation in a good way. And of course, they can ban each other. They can kind of police themselves to some extent to keep any one judge from totalitarianing the whole thing. But like that was exactly what we had in mind with Truth Wizards and TruthWorks, as far as creating kind of a gateway almost, some kind of where they basically police themselves and they basically let.
This is a good implementation of communal moderation based on the level of actual constructive contribution of that person in the system. And if you do it right, it could be just like incrementally gradual. It doesn't have to be like this person is a judge and therefore as long as they are a judge, just only what they say matters. No, it's like everybody's relatively positioned.
Everyone's got a score,
dynamically in time.
A score of between 1 to 100. 100 being your max influence, where where what you say basically has 10 or 100 times more power than what somebody at 1 or somebody just starting might say, right? And your score goes up or down based on how much other support or other people of influence like you or report you. Does that make sense?
Then I guess just there should be something between support and report. Like there should be something
we may
like
need some other buttons.
But overall the architecture makes sense.
Yeah, so it's like support to kind of lift it up, or to kind of maybe disagree with to kind of make it go down, or just not support, and then actually like report if it's like a toxic thing.
Because that's the thing. It doesn't have to be just up down absolutely. It could be used for different filterings. Like you don't have to have just one hierarchy at one time. You can have multiple parallel hierarchies that people can filter if like I want to look at it by this lens or look at it by this lens. That's a bit like what they're doing in ground news, like this sort of like a news disaggregation tools, where they would tell you like this is what the right-wing people are saying in the news and this is what the left-wing people are saying in the news, and it's just like for you to know that like or be able to put like in a filter like right now I want to see what the right wing is saying and right now I want to see what the left wing is saying, or I want to see a fair overview of everything.
It could get a little complicated having too many buttons, for sure. The more you have, like you at least need agree, disagree, and then like report toxic behavior, or report swears, or just report trolling, let's just say, right? Like a minimum of 3, but we may come up with other buttons that are find useful, or maybe you can choose which buttons to list. Like maybe there's
it could be customized. Like maybe you could put some customization in there for the user, because like one of the things that actually is bad as part of the shitification of the systems is that the one controlling it, like the corporation in control of the system, is basically dictating to you how you're supposed to be using the system and how everything is supposed to look, and try to maintain like full control on the user end because they want to do it for marketing purposes or some other bullshit purposes. Like I quite like open source systems where I'm not sure if you've considered making this open source or not, but like basically modability, or like the ability of the user to determine on their end, like how they want to be using the tool is important. Of course, you have to still design the system in a way so that it can work. Like everybody, if it's modded personally by different people, it still works ultimately. But yeah, I just genuinely am in support of these kind of features.
Nova, did you have it in mind to be like a nonprofit or a for-profit corporation at some point, or just entirely, like say everyone was a shareholder, every person who's a user of it is a shareholder in the corporation and like a voter and how it's run or something? What did you have in mind? Have you thought much about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's yeah, it would be good. I think that if the people that build it own a piece of it, and that everyone involved owns a piece of it until it's so diluted that it doesn't really matter who owns it anymore. It's just there.
Yeah. Now, were you thinking of ever trying to make, like, how would you pay for it? Donations, or would you ever try to make it, like I said, a for-profit with some kind of, let's just say optional advertising, or some advertising good things for society or something? What did you have in mind as far as how to get it out there?
Well, I only explained part of the project there.
Okay, we interrupted you too much. I'm sorry. We'll give the floor back to you for now.
No. I mean, there's other mechanisms and stuff involved as well, different kind of aspects of it. But from that perspective, basically my idea of many of these things, I think a good model for monetization, or whatever you want to call it, business model, is that you make it available for free to the public, and you charge for corporations and entities that want to use it and customize it for their own purposes, and perhaps privatize it, have internal discussions with it, or whatever, and that's where you make your money from. And in some cases that may need to be done first, so that you have the capital in order to be able to support a large free open source as well. I think would be smart public version.
So you basically sell it as like some sort of enhanced productivity system or interface to the companies. Like it actually reminds me quite a lot of how Red Hat was doing the Red Hat Enterprise Linux. Because like basically if you're an individual user, you can always just install that Linux for yourself and use it or whatever, because it's open source. They never sell the software itself for individuals to use. What they're selling is support to companies that like wanna not just to generally use the system, but they basically pay the company to install it, to service it, to develop it further, to adapt it to their specific purposes and stuff. And that's where the money is made. I think like that's actually what you're describing is a version of this model, and that can definitely work. And just I would then market it to the companies as something that could like enhance their productivity, because actually Red Hat in particular is very proud of they sort of have a forum where all of the employees can actually communicate and suggest stuff, and like but basically just like low tech, they used email chain, basically like through email, like everybody in the company could pitch in on various things and stuff. And it wasn't like never super efficient or super well moderated. Like they haven't figured it out. Like if you have the platform that you're describing, I think you can sell it to a company like Red Hat to like, so that's what you want to be doing. Like they actually even wrote a book about it. Like the ex-CEO of Red Hat wrote about, it's called The Open Organization. And it's basically like sort of the philosophy, corporate philosophy that's very compatible with this kind of tool existing, so that it can then facilitate constructive discussion of the employees within the company, even to like a scale of tens of thousands of people at the same time during some sort of a big company brainstorm meeting session.
So yeah, I think we need to figure out if Red Hat's done something like this yet, or already, or if some other companies
No, like Red Hat has the philosophy that basically is like, do you want this? Because this is what you need for something like an organization or corporation to be able to do effective cooperation between a large number of people on like ideas and stuff. So there's a use case for like a reasoning for why this is needed. So it's like there's a need that this solves, or a problem that this solves, or a need that this fulfills. Because even Red Hat was sort of pioneering this kind of approach in the company, to their great benefit, because they were just, I don't know, like constantly growing for like, I don't know how many quarters. It's just insanely functional company. So they just never developed like a specific interface or tool other than existing conventional modes of communication to facilitate it better. And I think at this point, they're not going to do it because they were bought about a year before I was let go. They were bought by IBM, I think. And so sort of, I think it sort of conserved them at like this sort of current state, and they stopped being sort of this sort of thought leader, innovator type people, and they just are now maintaining what they were, which is still pretty good. But if there are pressures in the company now, it's just like to maybe clamp down a little bit on that sort of open discussion and sort of to stop it from being actually effective. So I think somebody else can now supplant them if they do it better now, I would say. So it's just like what I'm saying now is just like, I think you could sort of, that's how you can sell it to like people in some other company that's maybe like a software company or some, well, it could be really any kind of corporations. It's like, yeah, so that's like the thing that they were trying to do. And even if they were doing it like worse than you will be able to with our software, that's how effective they were in their own industry. So just like imagine how well you could be if like just you pay us for like to develop it and service it for you and whatever. So I think that actually it's if you just make it, if like what you described, if you just like make that and it works, then I think like that's how you could get money.
Well, yeah, I mean, I put it away in 2012 because I didn't have any money to market it, and I took 3 months off work to just focus on it and produce it and create it and put it out there. And then I realized, okay, well, I don't know how to promote this, how to get even some of the mechanisms for them to actually start to take effect. You need 1,000 people in the conversation at the same time, or 100 people minimum kind of thing. Otherwise, it just looks kind of like a regular forum, which is not useful.
Yeah, you don't see the benefit in small scale.
Yeah, none of the things kick in. So I just put it aside, and I thought, okay, well, yeah, I thought it was a good idea. I'm sure Microsoft or someone else will do it. And it's been over 10 years, and we still don't have anything like it. And I know that because I don't see it, and it would be very visible if it.
No, like I said, like if anybody would do it, it would have been Red Hat, because they were sort of had the philosophy, and they still didn't do it, even though they're a software company.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I guess we have to kind of question a little bit why they didn't do it and why we should do it and why we're better than them. We're the ones to do it when they weren't. And maybe just like, I guess, yeah.
I think Red Hat failed. Red Hat failed to deal with itself scaling up, and then it was bought
Okay.
by competition. That I think that would stop them. If they remained smaller and they weren't bought by a large, like one of the largest corporations, and sort of conserved, I think they could have gotten to that point because they had a long, like, sort of innovative period where they were just developing stuff. But they sort of already grew to a point where now they're the big business thing, and so everybody who owns it and is a stakeholder in it is super conservative about them changing anything or really doing alternative projects.
What I'm kind of thinking is before you could really sell this to any, like, let's say, big company and make any kind of money off it, you almost have to at least prove it at some scale that it's got value. So you'd have to somehow, like Nova was saying, find that 1 million people or find that at least a couple thousand people to test it out, kind of work out the kinks and say, yeah, this is how it could work. We've got 1,000 people that were volunteering their time to kind of use it regularly. They all use it for an hour a week to discuss something to save the world with. And we got these, like something like the Leciel Corp Foundation. You know, if we could get them to maybe test it as one of their things, or somehow get the people from the World Federation movement to be involved in testing. Once a year, they get about 30 or 40 people together to kind of talk about Model UN ideas, parliamentary councils to kind of save the world. You know, so if you could just
maybe
get enough people...
maybe you could reach out to debating organization and also have been involved for like a couple of decades in debating competitions.
Yeah. So ideal if we could at least get some kind of prototype, you know, ready to test, and you know, test it with whatever 10 or 20 or 30 people to kind of, if you haven't already worked out the kinks, to get it to a point where we can try to spend some money or publicize, or use all my personal clout, my 700 Facebook friends or whatever, and just beg them all, please try this for an hour, please help us save the world by testing this tool out for an hour, you know, and just ask literally everyone I know, and we can all ask them, and just go one big thing to try to get as many people
keep
together.
reaching out to ideologically aligned people with audience.
Yeah, like between now and whenever we're ready over the next year, I can keep building up that Rolodex. You know, I've already got at least 100 people on my personal email Rolodex that might be interested in something like this, and they'll have 100 people on theirs that might be interested in something like this, right? So I don't think it would be that hard to get 10,000 people. You know, if we all, work together to just make that the moment and get 10,000 people for 1 hour to test this tool out and try to talk about some important topic, saving the world based, and come up with some real ideas and something that matters to all those 10,000 people.
Well, I guess like the costs for even doing a test is the servers that it would have to run on. Is like, so what's like the scale that you think that you could do with whatever capacity you have now?
1,000 people for sure. I do have a server. Yeah, I mean, what I would propose is that the three of us kind of continue to talk about this, and anyone who watches this or the other podcast and feels inspired to join us and volunteer 3 hours a week to help us make this. And along the way, I think we'll pick up more and more people. And, it may take a few months to make the software really good this time, because I'd like to make it good.
Yeah, if we can even get,
I think the money will come. To get a proper server for 1 million people, it's still only just text, so it's not $1 million or anything. Probably a few $1,000s. We'd have a top of the line server, enough to run it for 3 months and do a bunch of tests, and then it's just a matter of reaching out to different organizations with a complete product and saying, hey, you can test this for free. It supports collective consciousness or collective intelligence or whatever you want to call it. Mass conversations. And it's got a bunch of mechanisms built in so that.
Maybe it's like a sort of these. Those are the marketing questions, and maybe because that depends who you're selling it to. Like if you're selling it to companies, then you won't be using words like consciousness and stuff. But you could say something like productive conversations, productive large-scale conversations.
Yeah, productive.
And honestly, this think tank thing that I brought up is just one piece of what I've been working on. It's actually only one of the tools. There's several other disconnected tools that need to all be connected as well. And some of what Elijah Ignatieff is working on as well actually links up to this very well. And we approach this in a way as well to market it to corporations and stuff by using kind of a modified version of what I just talked about, integrated with some of his systems in order to give something to basically boardrooms and get-togethers for corporations to kind of build up their product.
Because like you can have a bunch of different cases to different target groups.
Yeah.
Like, that would be willing to pay and that you would be okay of accepting their money for.
Yeah, my original idea was you build it, they will come. I realized that's not quite true because there was a few other steps. So I think the philosophy now could be we build it and we
let people know.
We'll have the solutions come to us all along the way. Of what to do with it, who to sell it to, how much.
I would just say that for that saying, like you still have to let people know. Like you build it, and if it's good, you still have to let people know that it exists, and then something's going.
So I'm just trying to make a list of kind of action items for our first meeting anyway, and so I think the probably the most important action item of anything we talk about is just getting more seats dedicating the 3 hours. Whether it's the three of us dedicating 3 hours, so we want to go to 5, we want to go to 10. How long would it take us to get 10 people donating 3 hours a week to this cause to get it started? And then we can talk of whether we want to make a corporation or a nonprofit or something to kind of take it to the next level of 50 people or 100 people, giving
also, but just like
or another level of this as well, for example, a profit sharing model or an ownership model, you could also put it out there that some people that want to join can put the 3 hours a week in and $30 a month. And that becomes kind of a buy-in for their shareholding. And whether they leave tomorrow and they only paid $90 or they leave 10 years from now and they paid $9 million or they've never left, that kind of would dictate their ownership perhaps.
Okay, then that makes sense.
And give us some funding to kind of get a server, get, basic stuff going.
So we treat it as a for-profit initiative to save the world. And kind of get the best of both worlds.
So basically, those people would become shareholders to the extent to which they put money into it.
Yeah, money and time, perhaps. Maybe we can come up with a
system. Or time.
So say you can maybe do 6 hours and no money, or 3 hours and $30 or something, valuing whatever your time is.
Yeah, you should be able to come up with an equation for that. That makes sense. Just be transparent. It's just it's probably, if you want to scale it up to some sort of more significant scale, it probably should be formalized. Like if you want to tie it into something like the ownership, then it probably should be written down on like a sort of
that's something we can definitely think about. Like even with just the three of us, if not when we get to 5 or 10, we definitely need some kind of firm model with why you should donate 3 hours of your time to this. You could save the world, perhaps, Plus, you're going to get, ownership in some kind of, thing that might be worth $1 billion, someday, or $1 trillion someday. And, whether, you start on the ground floor, whether your shares kind of, every time we bring in an extra 100 people, the shares kind of get diluted a bit. So you're better to join early. I don't know if we want to worry about any of that stuff, or if shares are always kind of the same, whether you join early or join late. But we can definitely talk about all that stuff. That's a kind of important, I think, discussions to have at this level. I definitely have.
Well, usually it's done in the way that you sort of give a better deal to people who join earlier.
Usually, just to try to incentivize.
Like you can really do
adopters.
whatever you want.
Well, I think there's three things we're playing with here. There's time, there's money, and then there's decision-making power, right? The three of us
Social
are making
credits.
a lot of very heavy decisions that will impact the rest of the entire thing. The next person to join, that could be their only incentive to join earlier, is they have more decision-making power. They can, discuss this thing before it's even made.
Well,
get in on the ground floor.
Even more reason to formalize it. Like, I actually am on the board of Czech Debate Societies, it's like an NGO, and that's like the thing you need to do is like, the decision-making power is regulated by who are the board members, basically, and those are usually the founding people. And then you have some sort of mechanism for them to be removed if they're not doing what they're supposed to, or replaced, or maybe you have elections. Like, you should think about like what's the mechanism. If you like I said, like if you want to actually be serious about it, you should formalize these things. Like what is the decision-making structure, what is the sort of share percentage, or what's the conversion between like giving us money and giving time to the project. And just write it all down, have it like on paper and stuff. And then depending on the sort of legislation that you operate under, you could maybe make it into an official international NGO somewhere. It makes sense. But if we don't necessarily want to participate in the system, it's not a strict requirement, but at least among the people who participate, it's good to have it on paper so that everybody among the people who are working on the project and is accountable to each other is like understanding exactly what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Video record is a good new piece of paper that we can use as well, because if we all agree on it, and they can go back to the video they did on such and such a date, you said that it was going to be like this, and
No, for sure. Like look, if you're recording.
I'm recording already. We can post this. Yeah, we can definitely post this as a podcast.
Or at least like have it for record.
Yeah, we can definitely have a record.
These meetings should be recorded is a thing that I guess we've now decided.
Yeah, I record literally everything. Everything we ever talk about. Whenever we're on a video, I try to record it for our own.
Because then purposes. You could even use AI for transcripts and like transcripts to translations or whatever, so you can really formalize it, even if it's just video. So
let me just say
another thing I'd like to throw in to the mix is perhaps the amount of time you put in, the $30, whether you put it in for as long as you put it in, and maybe even another thing that could be kind of how much did you contribute? How much everyone agrees, this guy contributed a lot. This guy like really had that great idea that made it all work or whatever. And maybe that becomes a part of the ownership model as well. I don't know.
I love that. So let me suggest.
Just one thing about this specifically, but I think it should be formalized also. Like if we're already building social credit systems, we should have a credit system for a contribution that's also formalized.
That's exactly what I
propose that we create an entire alternative system to the entire system. And that this is just a piece of it. So it could include agreements and everything.
Okay, I love this. So let me suggest for a sec. So let's just say we have inputs. So the inputs are your time, your money, and your, let's just say, value of your
contribution.
Ideas. You call it social credits. We'll come up with a better word for that. Maybe.
I think for this, contribution.
Your contribution
should be
we'll have to kind of, again, formalize what that means, how you define that. But it's basically going to come down to the people who are currently in the group will give it a certain amount of supports or social credits, saying this was a great contribution. This knocked us into the stratosphere. 10 of us agree that he should get so many social credits for that idea because it was a great idea that none of us thought of. Or something along those lines. And
it's
that's
basically a form of voting.
So you basically have three inputs. Your level of contribution, which is decided kind of by everybody currently involved based on our mechanisms that we're trying to get out to the world.
By a vote. I would really try to simplify it. It's a kind of a vote.
Yeah, call it a kind of a vote. So your contribution, your time, or your money. And I would kind of suggest to some level that however much of any of those things, well, time and money, they can choose how much to put in and get some kind of tangible benefit based on how much time or money they're putting in, as well as the social credit, which isn't as much of a choice as it is actually maybe working or thinking hard to actually come up with something that everyone values. So my point is that you kind of choose. Maybe it's not just 3 hours, maybe it's 10 hours, or maybe it's only 1 hour if you only have 1 hour. So you choose how much to put in, and you get so many shares in the company, or maybe so much dividends at some point if we could ever pay dividends, or maybe so much social credit added to your decision-making power when we start using this tool to actually make our own decisions.
You could sort of you could, like, along your idea, you could sort of gamify it a little bit by giving the person a choice how they want to cash it out.
That's exactly what I'm saying. So the flexibility of it is great. You choose what you want to put in, and you choose how you want to cash it out, and you can convert it. So you could somehow, maybe at some point in the future, theoretically convert your social credits into actual dividends or cash, perhaps. Or maybe just use that instead of putting time in, use that for your $30 a month instead, because you've built up so many social credits.
Or to, like, get everyone's attention.
Yeah. I have this idea that I'd love to use my social credits to become a number one topic of the day, to get this new idea or this new business out there. I want to advertise my personal business on the side using my social credit score that I built up over years.
And I think it's much better than if it's like, because currently this is only possible in the social media by, I paid for it, or right, I'm the husband of the person who owns it, or whatever. So that's not great. That's like really anti-democratic and anti-most decent values that people hold in high regard. But if it's like, I bought it with my time working on this project, then that's you can't earn it more than this. It's this quantified earning of. And I actually also want to say on the record, I really like this because what we're developing right now, just for the project, is basically a society model. Like, this is a whole, like, a framework that you can just use for communal organization or for just being a society.
Yeah, so we're talking about using our tool that we haven't developed yet in order to develop our tool.
That's right. Because change actually comes from the future.
Yeah.
So by imagining the future that we want to create, the change can come to us backwards in time, I believe.
I think so.
I would also propose, though, that the three things, if we're going to go with three things, time, money, and contribution, that there's a minimum of 3 hours a week, a minimum of $30 a month.
Sure.
Or a month, sorry.
That's a good starting point. I agree.
Depends on what it is. Yeah. And the contributionism is the kind of flexible thing. But I would caution against allowing people to put in 10 hours a week or $1 million a month to buy more of the company, because that could lead to pretty big problems.
No, so like you need a limit too. So a minimum amount and a maximum.
You want to algorithmically regulate it. It's sort of a math problem, like mathematical political problem. Like, you have to think about the implications of, if we allow people to do X, like if they could game the system, or it could have some sort of undesirable consequences, just because that's actually in political science. That's a big thing, is like, if you become a political scientist, what you're supposed to do is learn how to manipulate political systems by, like, changing the number of seats or length of terms or whatever to achieve outcomes, which is very evil. But, like, that's kind of consideration you have to put if you're allowing this, sort of making these systems. Like, I like this sort of, there has to be some sort of limitations, but the limitations, importantly, need to be derived from practical consequences of, if you, like, there's no problem in forbidding people from doing. It's actually no benefit from forbidding people to do something that wouldn't have any negative implications. You just, like, if you're forbidding something, you also have to have a rationale of, like, we decided this is the limit because if we let it happen, these negative implications could follow, and we agree that those would be undesirable.
I have an idea, though. What you could potentially do, rather than just have a minimum and a maximum, is you could basically have diminishing returns to some extent. Where, say, you put in 3 hours, that's kind of your input and output, I think, is important. So you put in 3 hours, you get 1 share of the company, or you put in 3 hours, you get 3 social credits. You put in 3 hours, you get potentially a future dividend of $30 an hour or $10 an hour or whatever at some point in the future when we happen to have those dividends to give, maybe. It's kind of a bank that you can kind of convert at any point when you want to pull out your social credits and convert them to actual cash and walk away. We'd like to be able to provide that at some point if we're able to, just because it incentivizes more people to actually put inputs into it, because it's like money in the bank for later. So what I'm suggesting is that you put in the inputs. The more inputs you put in, the less value you get out of them, perhaps. Like, you say your first 3 hours gets you $10 an hour. Your next 3 hours might get you $9 an hour, then $8 an hour, or something. It's just kind of makes it basically.
Yeah, it's a mathematical problem
Yeah.
that we can have a mathematical discussion about, perhaps with a mathematician.
Perhaps I'm just trying to think. I don't
what
want
works.
to limit someone saying they can't give us $1 million, but I definitely want to limit the amount that will buy them. So say their first.
That's basically like I like what Luke is suggesting in principle, because that's like a not strict limitation, that's a soft limitation.
Yeah.
That's like people may have a tendency to find it much more acceptable than just like, and you can't do more. That's sort of a less smart way to
I would
do
also
it.
suggest that it's more important to devalue it quicker on the money thing, and perhaps also have a cap.
Sure.
Whereas the time thing, mainly, I think we just want to try to prevent people from burning out so badly by trying to
That's
put in
valid.
100 hours a week to get more shares. Like
No,
it should be incrementally worse.
Again, that's a completely justifiable rationale that if you write it down on paper explaining that's why this exists, then nobody will have a problem with it.
Yeah, like anything more than say 10 or 20 or 40 hours a week is so diminishingly returns. You're not really getting any OPTA. If you're really passionate and you've got the energy, some people love to work 80 hours a week on something they're passionate about. I would hate to say you can't, but like you're not getting the direct benefit as much as the first 40 hours.
Well, they should at least get a notification. If it's exceeding the normal work hours, they should at least get some sort of notification.
Yeah, we're recommending you take a break.
Maybe take a break.
Go enjoy some nature and figure out why you want to save the world again or something. But we can
go
definitely
enjoy the world you're saving.
Yeah, something like that. I'm 100% agree that at least valid reasons on why we're kind of encouraging people to just work a few hours a week to avoid burnout and to enjoy it. And but at some point when this is a full-time company, I imagine a lot of people will be working 40 hours a week on this because they'll have the time. They won't need other jobs, and they'll love to spend time doing things they love. So it won't feel like work.
Well, and I think it's also important to realize too that if we build the system in this way, which I think we should, this particular think tank idea won't take that long. It'll take a few months probably to make with maybe a couple dozen people, and that's enough to make it quite good. And then we'll have all these people continuing to try to contribute 3 hours a week to something. So to create more than just this one thing is going to be important, obviously. And along the way, I think we should just create the systems we need to collaborate together and to come up with new ideas and support ideas and discuss ideas and everything else, so that we can just keep pumping out more and more stuff. In order to all holistically hook up together into an entirely new alternative economic and socio system for the world that people can join as well.
Well, that's basically the idea of pillars that we have. We try to have already an overarching logic of this would be a part of one partial solution that fits into the context of the other solutions in this.
And I would also
my focus is communication. That's all. That I think it's just that's where my brain goes.
And I would recommend. I would also recommend that at least 30 minutes of your 3 hours, maybe even an hour of 3 hours, is like the same time for ideally everybody. Within time zones it might be complicated, but it's like a weekly gathering of some kind where we just do something like this with the three of us, where we're able to kind of use our conversation. For 12 people we could do a video conference, but when we get into the hundreds, we could try using our own tool to some extent to have a weekly meeting. It's a meeting of minds at least once a week, and that's part of your contribution, that essentially everybody has that minimum of 1 hour a week to do this, and then your other 2 hours might be your own personal work.
Definitely a benefit of developing a tool for productive communication is that you can use it to productively communicate about how to develop it.
Yeah,
but that's why to me it came as the first piece that's needed. If you're combining tons of people together to change the world, the first thing we're going to need is a way to do that. So let's just combine each other and do it.
This is great.
It's kind of
agree.
I have lots of people that I think would be very interested in this. Even already, the more we talk about it, the more I think I can sell this, to people. Like it's just something that people would enjoy being a part of. I think.
No, like I said, I literally worked in a company where they needed this. And didn't develop it, even though they're a software company.
I think society needs it, and all these movements and causes need it. Something like this.
Okay, that's cool. So action items. Does anyone else have anything else they want to bring up on our very first meeting, action item wise?
I would just want to say that step number one on how to get people sort of involved at the beginning could be, or the first phase of this should be something like this, actually sessions of discussing what it should be, how it should be done, what we should do, type stuff. And you can, I think, fairly easily get some people involved at this stage to do the work at the beginning in this form.
Yeah.
It's like sort of but also to crystallize what it is that we actually want to do.
Okay. So is that a good start? We'll say 1 hour discussion a week. Come to our weekly meeting. Come to our weekly brainstorm session, and then take 2 hours a week to think about it. Do the action items, whatever they might be. We'll try to task different things.
And to
different
record it and post it online somewhere so that people can basically get into it.
Yeah. If they miss, they can use their hour to watch it later.
And I think at the end of the video, at least for now, it's super important to put some sort of call in action, like give them tell them exactly what to do if that watcher wants to join us, Yeah. And another thing, I think, I agree with all that. I think for now, our focus should be crystallizing what we're trying to really do as our first big project, perhaps this think tank, and also just like how we're going to organize each other, the agreements that we're going to try to make and put down on paper, and also what to do before we get too many people, because that's going to be our first problem.
Yep.
Yeah.
Scaling up is always difficult.
All right. So far I've got the 1 hour discussion a week, 2 hours of work, prep, planning, acting, as a baseline to start with. And then we're going to talk about, formalizing the 3 inputs, however we decide to do it, and the 3 rewards, let's just call them, or what is a reward a good word? 3 inputs and outputs, banking.
Input and output sounds clinical.
Yeah. So you got your 3 inputs and your 3 rewards, or your 3 monetary, no.
Compensation, at least, is
what's a good word?
Perhaps just the model of contributionism.
I'm just trying to think of how to like
I like that.
How to phrase why they're doing the inputs. Like it's their motivation. It's like their motivation for kind of wanting to be a part of this.
I think philosophically, I think it's important to go back to the very start of this and try to instill in everyone who joins and everyone who's helping us that the number one reason that we're all doing this is to change the world.
Absolutely.
The incentives of owning a piece of it or all the rest, these are secondary items, and they should be secondary.
I wouldn't. That's why I wouldn't use the word incentive, because that sounds too capitalisty. I would use compensation.
Compensation, okay. I'm okay with that word.
That's what that is. And I also want to state on the record, I really like contributionism.
Contributionism.
As a name of the idea or the model. I think that's pretty solid.
Contributionism. Yeah. Okay, we'll think about that. We definitely need a really good, catchy name for this whole project, whatever we want to call it, because that's what we're selling people. Like that, I'm going to make a PowerPoint. I'll show it to all my friends and family members. I'll try to get people that want to be a part of it. Like we've got to have that PowerPoint first. So that's something that we definitely have to formalize before we can really sell it to more than our closest friends anyway. So we got the inputs, and we'll call it the compensation for now. Are you okay with that word, Nova? For now, like obviously, saving the world, changing the world is number one as far as our compensation. We get a better world to live in, but we're also focusing on formalizing our inputs and our direct compensation for those inputs.
So the inputs and outputs are contribution and compensation.
Right. Inputs, contribution, outputs, or compensation. Okay.
Yeah, I like that.
Because contribution and compensation sound much warmer, more human, and philosophically more aligned with what we're actually doing than inputs and outputs.
I like those words. I'm totally up for those. So contributions, compensations, and trying to just formalize that model. We can definitely that's kind of our action item to think about it. That'll be our main thing. We'll talk about it at our next meeting.
Which means that like the thing that people would vote for that would be valued, especially more subjectively, couldn't be called contribution also, but it's a bit different word for that one. As opposed to like time and money. So maybe it will be something like impact, which is like a word that explains more what's being voted for.
Yeah, I like that word. Impact, time, money are your 3 contributions, and your outputs, your compensations are again, potentially money, future dividends we'll call them, shares in the company. What was the other one? Social credits. Social credits is perfect. So that's your compensation. And any 3 of those things could arguably be transferred for any 3 other things, whichever one of those things you want more of. If you want all social credits, or if you want all shares, or if you want all
they're all forms of currency. Yeah, because they're all forms of currency.
They're all forms of currency.
And
and the social credit is like our form of new currency that we're hoping the whole world kind of adopts at some point. For a better form of money, a better form of currency. But it has to be kind of convertible into actual stuff I can buy food with at some point in the future, ideally. Right?
Yeah, because
think
like you
that's-
wouldn't be like you wouldn't get a higher level of visibility because you were born rich with money, but you will get it because you've spent more time on and or had bigger impact on the outcome that everybody agrees was
or
significant.
invested a little bit more earlier to kind of help kick it off the ground. You
Yeah.
get more dividends for your early investments, perhaps. So,
At the very least,
I love
like
it.
investment.
Yeah, it's an investment in the future of the world and making the world better, and everyone should be rewarded, incentivized to make good decisions to save the world.
So like you had money, but you're not rewarding for having money. You're rewarded for choosing to use that money to improve the world.
Perfect. I love it. This is awesome. I'm super excited. Woo! My mind's exploding.
No, this is really great. I think it's really cool work.
Okay, so we got that. We need definitely a good name for the company or the project. Let's just call it for now. Good name for the project. And so contributionism, is that
if you wanted to convert it into political philosophy, then as a person who studied political philosophy, I don't think it's taken, and I like it.
Contributionism is our new project on the table for the new project name and our new philosophy for society. And it's a combination of all the other isms, the best parts of all the other isms up till now.
Well, I think actually now I'm motivated to try to actually seriously develop it because this is actually I think there's something there that's kind of unique and new. And
like I said,
just
Martin, you and I have been doing this for 2 years already. Like this is what saving the world together has always been about in my mind. Like we just weren't sure exactly how to phrase it, but this is what we've been doing. So just the fact that we're bringing Nova in here and he was doing it for more the technical side. There's just so much synergy here. I love it.
Yeah, it's so much easier that you have already invented it.
Yeah,
like that we were
you were the
saying
missing
it would
piece
be
of the
nice
puzzle.
to have.
You're the missing piece of the puzzle, and it just it's like we were missing a piece for 2 years, and now all of a sudden the puzzle looks so much clearer. The fact that
it's
you're
like so
here
this
today.
is how you do it.
It's like the puzzle pieces fit together so well.
Actually, that's as an analogy. That's how I feel as well. Like I feel like I'm the piece of a missing puzzle for a long time, and I've been looking for the puzzle to join. Of all the other pieces.
So yeah,
I don't know where I fit into the puzzle, but I know I'm a piece.
Okay, this is great.
Quarter piece, probably.
Okay, so then of course the other thing is this week. Think about if anybody wants to join our meeting for next week. Now, as far as timing, is this a good time for you in general, Nova? Or is there a better time when you can do an hour a week?
No, this is good. Well, I should say that when we started our first meeting, that's good for me.
Yeah. Well, so it'll be 10 o'clock your time Sunday morning typically. Mine will be Saturday at 6. Martin, is it a little late for you? Is there
a little bit, but it's not terrible. Like midnight-ish, probably.
Yeah, I mean, we may have to just try. It's always going to be bad
like
for somebody.
that's the difficulty. Like we're basically uniting the whole planet right now. It's just like North America, Central Europe, and New Zealand.
That'll be one of our problems as well. Is how do we meet together when we got someone in India?
Could you do it an hour earlier, maybe, Nova, or
Yeah.
is 9 too early for you on a Sunday morning?
That's too early for me on a Sunday.
Okay, no worries. We'll start with this. We'll start with this for now. I'm okay with it.
No, for me, it's not a problem. I'm not employed at this point. I'm independent, and I'm living basically in North American time. So.
And it's a Saturday night. People stay up late on Saturday nights. They party hard. Martin, this is your form of partying on a late Saturday night.
Well, this is actually how I was judging international online debates, usually at my midnight, because like there were kids who had morning and kids who had evening.
Okay.
Who were like debating like from the Canadian kids versus Chinese kids or something.
All right.
So
that's a big step. We've now chosen our 1 hour a week to meet to help us save the world by creating a whole new system of social credits. Perfect. So the official time is 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. 10 a.m. whatever time Nova's in, and 12 p.m. for Martin's time. Everybody, make a note of that.
Yeah, I just would like to say, as for the social credit systems, like it's very important so that it's not a popularity contest, and then it evolves into the Black Mirror / the Orwell episode scenario.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And it must not be done like in China as a punitive thing. That like the only thing you can get from it is screwed over more if you're not doing the things that you're supposed to be doing. Like those are ways of doing social credit that are terrible.
Yeah, I think for sure we want to focus on the carrot a lot more than the stick if we ever need a stick at all. Like 100%.
But also,
carrot.
I think the solution really is basing the credit on contribution. It's really not, and it's to get the rewards. So it's like based on contribution to get rewards. It's not based on something superficial like popularity or something, well, evil like the party dictator decided this is what people should be doing. So it's completely arbitrary. So what it is based on has to be valuable inherently. It must not be superficial. And the outcomes, what you get out of it, must not be forcing anybody to be restricted or censored or like not anything terrible being done to them, but the focus of what you get through it has to be like there are some limited social resources, and so we need a system to determine who should get those limited social resources. And one of those is like visibility. So it's like if you want to get everybody's attention for 10 minutes, like today you can buy it with money. That's the only way how you can get it, and usually the people didn't super earn it. Like they didn't earn a million more times money than somebody else. They didn't work a million times as hard. Like the contribution in that equation doesn't work out. So I think this is like really solid economic philosophy of like political organization. Actually, I really like it. I don't think it was invented.
Yeah, and also the other thing to bear in mind too is, so say for whatever reason in the future we monetize this, and we can kind of factor in that every hour you put in, you can kind of claim, let's just say at least $10 an hour for time, because I think that's a pretty fair, like $20 an hour is probably better if we can get up there. But even let's just say $10 an hour. That kind of creates a minimum wage for the entire world in some ways, right? Where anyone in the world can kind of just join our organization, and at some point in the future, potentially, if it takes off, they could claim value for all their money put in based at a minimum wage of whatever we decide, $10 an hour or whatever we can afford, I guess, going forward. And it just kind of gives them an immediate incentive to kind of, work that 3 hours, minimum 3 hours of work a week for us, rather than whatever other BS job they're doing for $1 a day or something, right? So it just kind of immediately gets this huge audience that say, wow, I can work, online for a saving the world type company for a potentially future $10 an hour or something.
I think like the issue with many of these like projects, including like these crypto, like the cryptos that try to become big and make a lot of money, or the social media that get somebody make somebody a millionaire, like the CEO of the company, but then they're like exploiting the hell out of all the people who are doing any work for them, or just taking their money and just don't intend to give any money back. And there's like no earning of anything and no actual contribution to anything, and that's why those things explode and collapse. Or implode. Like that's like if you actually try to do something like this, but ethically, then I think it would be resilient. It would be like something that would be very hard to not only like actually like it wouldn't have any reason to explode or implode or just stop working, but it would just be getting stronger over time. It's just I think like the main failing really is fundamentally ethical of most of those people who were just trying to do something like this, but weren't focusing on contributing, but were only focusing on getting a lot of money for themselves out of it.
That's a valid point. We should definitely stress to anyone we get involved that it's secondary. The compensation is secondary to wanting to do good for the world. I think that's
to the contribution. Like let's use our terminology. It's really the contribution. It's not compensationism. It's contributionism.
Yeah. The compensation is secondary to the contribution. The contribution is the main goal of contributing for contributing's sake, and the compensation is just a kind of an added side benefit.
Like of the project as such, like really the it's not like you want to get broke or die because of starvation while doing this. Like that's not the goal. Like the goal is to be still compensated, but you're not doing it to be compensated per se. You're doing it to contribute. You're just trying to figure out a way how to contribute and also be compensated.
I love it. That's awesome.
Proportionally.
Nova, you good with all that? Anything to add?
Yeah, I think it's pretty good for our first meeting.
Okay.
Yeah, we've solved like several world problems in our first meeting. Like, no big deal.
Okay. So then the other action item then is, talk to your friends. Think about if you want to invite anyone for next week's meeting. If you want to just do it, just the three of us again. Do you have anyone in mind right now, Nova? I guess Captain Sweep probably is an obvious one. Is there anyone else you want to try to invite?
Definitely he's the first to come to mind. I think I don't want to say anyone right this second, but I will think about it. And
all right,
honestly, I propose that just the three of us do our next meeting.
I'm okay with that too.
Come to that meeting with the intention of inviting people to the next meeting
I'm totally fine.
Yeah, no,
and then
I wanted to
between
say
these two
that
meetings, maybe even talk to those people now and
I wanted to say that actually it might be a better idea to keep it a little bit contained for a little bit at the beginning until we define the fundamentals.
Yeah, maybe until we
then
run out of good ideas, because right now we're just overflowing with ideas as it is.
Yeah.
But yeah,
so,
no,
so that
I'm
we,
fine
if
with
you
that.
bring other people in, so that it just doesn't get disorganized or disrupted, or not sort of working together. So like we need to have a very clear idea when we're inviting people to be in what we're inviting them into.
Okay, I'm good with that. Yeah, for sure. And I'll kind of I'll make notes of all these things. We've got to kind of figure out exactly how we're going to ask people and what we're going to explain to them as far as what we'd like, this to turn into. So that'd be kind of our main topics for next week, is just formalizing all that after pondering for about a week, figuring out how to formalize it, and then go on from there. All right, awesome. So I will. We can post this. How do you want to do it? Should we post this video somewhere just for us, Martin, or should I try to make minutes and just email them out?
We should post it somewhere on YouTube. I think it should be like up, because the expectation is like nobody really will find it for a while.
Yeah.
It's just, but I think it should be on some sort of public platform.
So I'll make a shared
the
folder.
Potential of luring somebody.
Yeah. So
attracting
I think
somebody's attention.
For now, what I can do is I'll just make a shared folder. I'll put this whole thing in there, just like I did do with our Saving the World Together. It'll be a separate one. I'll share it with Nova and you and anybody else who joins. So anyone can just go right on Google and download it.
So maybe a question, Nova. Do you have some sort of channel?
Nova?
Video channel?
No, I don't really know.
Okay. We can start a new one just for this if we want, or we can just put it on our.
Maybe we could be putting it on our channel.
It's like I said, it's close enough. This is really what we've been trying to do for forever anyway. So this in my mind is TruthWorks. So like we can change the name of TruthWorks to match whatever name we decide here. To be honest, like that's really what we're focusing on here, I think. So I'm totally fine with just making it part of our normal platform and just saying this is the pivot. This is our direction. We finally decided to focus on this one first after 2 years of making videos. This is our starting pillar, and we'll see how far it takes us. And
already just this project, like this is actually the first corporate project.
Yeah, this is our first project. Yeah, which is what this is what we've been trying to do for a long time. So it's great that it's finally happening. Okay, so I think we'll just post it there for now. Maybe we can just post it. Do we want to make it public? I have no problem with making it public. What do you think?
I think it's a good idea.
Yeah,
I really think if we are open to more people participating, then it's good if it's on public record.
Yeah, we'll just put it as part of our normal channel. Then saying, these maybe have some kind of separate category. Meetings to save the world.
No, it will be a separate playlist. I will make just like a separate playlist for it.
We'll just call it. These are the meetings to save the world together.
We just need to figure out the name of the project.
Yeah, so
because
Nova,
the name of the project will be name of the playlist.
But before I go too far, are you okay with using that as kind of a, title / father organization of this whole thing, in some ways, or you want it to be completely separate? Like, what's your opinion? Are you okay with synergizing, or I guess uniting with the Saving the World Together platform?
Yeah, sure. Doesn't bother me.
All right. I just wanted to ask that up front. That's obviously the more connected it is, the easier it is for us, because we can use the same website.
I think our platform is named in a way that's entirely compatible with this project.
Yeah.
Like I said, this is exactly what we've been trying to do. So if we can just use the same website, have a separate section, use the same podcast, and just have meetings. That's perfect.
Because also it sort of gets impractical if you keep splitting your audience endlessly, and if you have multiple separate hostings, that just doesn't even make marketing or economic sense.
No, and I'm already paying for the website. I'm already paying for the servers. I'm paying for my 200 gigabytes of Google and my Google Invite meetings. I pay $10 a month so we don't get cut off after an hour for these meetings. So all the things have already been paid for, so we might as well take advantage of them. This is the Saving the World Together channel that we're.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
All right, awesome, great meeting. Any final words or thoughts? We'll post this. I've got your email now, so maybe I'll just send you highlights of the action items as well, just so we can kind of know what we want to ponder for next week, and then we'll start from the action item list. And we also maybe want to talk about structures of these meetings, how you want to kind of handle them to start with, and see how that evolves as far as. Something that we should talk in the first meetings about things like how to structure meetings. Yeah, absolutely. And if we want to give ourselves specific roles or names, we can think of that later. Who wants to be the CEO or the whatever?
Yeah, who will be the emperor?
Who wants to be the emperor for a day? We'll take turns. It'll be a rotating emperorship. Everyone gets to take a turn.
I don't think emperor.
All right. Okay, I'm super excited. Looking forward to our next meeting next week. Actually, sorry. We might have to do it in 2 weeks because next week I'm at the Mr. Money Mustache conference. If you guys want to meet without me, you're welcome to. The two of you, I'll just put you in contact. But I'm gone from Thursday until Sunday next week and I'll actually be talking to all of them about this. You can guarantee that. So it's a good chance for us to get to 70 people who I think will be very interested in this concept as well. So I'll be using that term. But so 2 weeks from now, we'll have our next meeting.
I could actually use the first week or the next weekend to try to write down some of this stuff and post at least an article about this, because I already like the contributionism philosophy of Nova McCourt.
Okay, so let's take 2 weeks to ponder everything we've talked about today, and we'll come back super strong in 2 weeks with lots of ideas, and take it from there. Is that good with you, Nova?
That sounds good.
That sounds great. All right, we'll talk to you again in 2 weeks, and send me a text anytime if there's anything, and I'll send an email with the notes. All right, let's do it. Let's save the world together. Thanks, everybody. Thanks so much, Nova. It was great. And we'll talk again soon.